My girlfriend, April, became the company's top salesperson and was about to get a promotion and a raise. The first thing she did, though, was dump me. She scorned me for not having money or talent, humiliated me in every way possible, and immediately started dating her boss. What she didn't know was that I was actually the heir to a fortune. Her achievements were all thanks to my silent support from behind the scenes. We're breaking up? You're not good enough for me. We started at this company around the same time, and I'm already the top salesperson about to be promoted to supervisor. And you? Your sales are at the bottom of the team. How can I possibly have a future with someone like you, who people will laugh at me for being with? I've already found a man who's a better match for me, so don't come bothering me anymore. Looking at April, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I couldn't believe these words were coming from the woman I loved. It was a Saturday morning when I received a text from her saying we were through. I couldn't believe it was real, so I rushed over to her place, hoping to get some answers. Just as I reached the entrance to her apartment complex, I saw her, all dolled up, walking out. I stopped her, only to be met with humiliation. The reason she gave for breaking up with me was something I couldn't accept. I looked at April, deeply hurt, and said, "April, we've been together for 6 months. I've done so much for you. You're about to be promoted to supervisor, and you're this eager to break up with me?" April looked at me with disdain and said, "What else? Should I continue to be with a broke loser who doesn't even have a car or a house?" I clenched my fists and asked, "Do you love money that much? Don't be naive. Who doesn't like money? What kind of relationship can you have without money? How do you buy a house, get married, and have kids?" April retorted, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I wanted to say more, but I noticed April's gaze suddenly shift towards the roadside. Her face lit up with joy, and she said, "My boyfriend's here." I followed her gaze and saw a Mercedes parked by the road. A man got out of the car, and I recognized him immediately. It was our manager, John, who April and I both reported to. Ignoring me completely, April hurried over to him and, linking her arm through his coude, "John, you're finally here." John put his arm around April's waist and gave her a kiss. Then he glanced at me and said to her, "April, didn't you say you broke up with him? Why is he still here?" April huffed. "I did, I told him this morning, but he insisted on coming here to pester me for an explanation. It's so annoying." John shot me a contemptuous look and said coldly, "You have no talent, and you're completely unworthy of April. Don't bother her again, or you'll regret it." April chimed in, "That's right, don't bother me anymore. Only a man like John can give me security." I looked at April and asked, "You're willing to be with a man like this just for money?" John was already over 30, had a noticeable beer belly, and was quite greasy. It was hard to accept that April would betray me for such a man. April, however, got angry and shouted, "What do you mean a man like this? If you were half as good as John, I wouldn't have to break up with you. John's been promoted to manager, and he can help me become a supervisor. Can you do that?" "He can do jack. He's at the bottom of the team. He's lucky he hasn't been fired yet. Once I'm firmly in the manager's seat, I'll find an opportunity to get rid of him, so he won't bother you at the company. Yes, fire him so he stops dragging our team down. I was with him for so long, and he's still such a loser. I must have been blind to have fallen for him." They hurled insults at me and flaunted their affection in front of me before finally driving off. I watched the scene unfold coldly. I didn't try to defend myself or argue. As they left, I simply said, "You'll regret this." They clearly didn't take my words seriously and treated them as a joke, laughing it off. But what they didn't know was that I was actually from a very wealthy family. The only reason I joined the company as an ordinary employee was to pursue April. Ironically, the first thing she did after achieving success with my help was to dump me. My name is Ethan, and I come from a wealthy background. However, I prefer to keep a low profile, so not many people know my true identity. Once, I met April by chance and developed feelings for her. She didn't know my real identity. She was just an ordinary girl, and I was worried that my true identity would put pressure on her, so I didn't reveal it. April worked at a company called Power Machinery, which mainly sold heavy machinery. She was a key account sales representative, but due to her lack of experience, she wasn't doing well in her job. To help her, and also to have more opportunities to be close to her, I joined the same company and became a key account sales representative like her. With my help, April's sales performance improved steadily, and our relationship grew closer, eventually leading us to become a couple. I did this to help her become more successful and confident enough to be with me in the future. I never expected that she would start looking down on me after achieving some success. Recently, she had started to distance herself from me and became somewhat impatient with me. I thought it was because she was busy with work, but now it seemed like she had already betrayed me and gotten together with John. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, when I arrived at the office, April saw me and her eyes were filled with coldness and disdain. During the morning meeting, John publicly praised April. Congratulations to April for being last month's top salesperson. This is the third consecutive month April has been the top salesperson in the company. And, as you all know, the supervisor position for our team is currently vacant. I've already recommended April to the company to fill this position. I trust there are no objections. The colleagues expressed their congratulations. Even if anyone had objections, they wouldn't dare to voice them openly. John's abilities were average, but his uncle was the marketing director, so his subordinates didn't dare to offend him. Moreover, April had been the top salesperson for 3 consecutive months, demonstrating her ability to be a supervisor. Everyone had to accept it, whether they liked it or not. April smiled smugly and thanked everyone. But when she looked at me, she chose to ignore me. I felt a surge of anger, but remained silent. John continued, "While some have performed well, others have performed poorly." As he spoke, John turned his gaze towards me, and everyone else followed suit. "Ethan, you've been at the bottom for several months in a row. You're seriously dragging down our team's performance. If this continues, I hope you'll resign on your own. Your abilities are not sufficient for this job, and you're affecting the company's image," John said coldly. I gave a mocking smile, but didn't respond. Of course, my performance was bad. I wasn't here for the job, and I didn't care about the salary. Any client resources I had, I gave to April. That's why her performance was so good, and I was always at the bottom. Seeing that I remained silent, John continued, "Resigning on your own would be good for you too. With your abilities, you can only earn a basic salary here. You'd be better off finding a job at a factory. The pay would be higher than what you're making now." Manager John is right, Ethan. I also advise you to resign voluntarily. It would be better for everyone, April added. I ignored John's insults and turned to April. "Have you forgotten how you became the top salesperson? Where did your clients come from? Didn't I refer them all to you?" April's sales skills were quite average, so I used my extensive connections to find clients for her. To put it plainly, the clients April had weren't really interested in buying our company's products. They only became her clients to please me and establish a relationship with me. April, however, dismissed it. "That's because you were incapable of closing those deals, and I did. They're my clients now. You don't need to refer clients to me anymore. I don't need them. Don't think I became the top salesperson because of you. Without you, I'd still be the company's top salesperson." At that moment, I saw April's true colors and felt utterly disappointed. My anger subsided, and I became strangely calm. I said calmly, "Fine, you said it. I won't interfere anymore. As for resigning, I have no plans to do so at the moment. I want to see if you can remain the top salesperson without me." I could tell that John and April really wanted me to leave the company. Probably because April didn't want to be gossiped about, didn't want people to know that her ex-boyfriend was a failure in the same company. After all, she was about to be promoted to supervisor and needed to maintain her image. However, the more they wanted me to leave, the more I wanted to stay. It wasn't because I cared about the job, but because I wanted to stay and watch the show to see how they would regret what they did today. I returned to my desk. April sat down next to me, her desk being adjacent to mine. As she sat down, she gave me a disdainful look, as if saying, "Why is this loser still sticking around?" I ignored her gaze and took out my phone to send a text message. Soon, April's phone rang, and she answered it. "Hello, Mr. Lee, I prepared the contract, and we can sign it whenever you're available." "Oh, you want to cancel the cooperation? We discussed this last time. Why the change of mind?" "What? You won't cooperate with us anymore, and you won't buy any products from Power Machinery." "Hello, Mr. Lee, hello." April was hung up on. She stared blankly at her phone, at a loss for what to do. I watched all this with a cold smile. This client was one I had introduced to April, but I had just sent a text message to have the cooperation canceled. I said leisurely, "I can help you gain clients, and I can also make you lose them." April stared at me, half believing, half doubting. "Did you do this?" I didn't answer directly, but said, "Didn't you say you're capable?" Then use your abilities to get the client back. April looked unconvinced and said coldly, I don't believe you have that kind of power. I'm warning you, don't cause trouble for me. Mr. Lee's deal is worth millions. If I lose it and can't be the top salesperson this month, I won't let you off. After saying that, April got up and went into John's office. She came back after a while. As soon as she sat down, she looked at me with disdain and said, You almost fooled me. If you really knew someone as important as Mr. Lee and could influence his decisions, why would you be working here? Stop pretending. A loser is a loser. You read too many novels pretending to be some mastermind. How childish. There must be some misunderstanding. Once I explain it to Mr. Lee, he'll still be my client. April's goal was to become a supervisor, so she wanted her performance to always be the best in the company. This way, people wouldn't gossip about her, especially since she hadn't been at the company for long and was in a relationship with John. People might think she got the position through connections, so she really cared about Mr. Lee's big deal. I didn't argue with April or bother to explain. Some things have to be seen to be believed. 2 days passed. April tried to explain to Mr. Lee, but he wouldn't even take her calls. She had no idea what to do. That morning, as I arrived at the company building, I ran into April and John. They were hugging and showing affection, not caring about appearances or the impression they were making. Their relationship had become known throughout the company in the past few days, and I, the dumped ex, naturally became the subject of behind-the-back gossip. When April saw me, she looked disgusted and mocked. Oh, you're early today. It must be tiring riding your little electric scooter to work every day. Why bother? You should just leave the company. John chimed in. He could rent an apartment nearby. April laughed. You're funny. With his bottom-of-the-barrel performance, how could he afford to rent an apartment nearby with his meager salary? Unlike you, who bought a place nearby, he can only afford to rent a place far away. John nodded in agreement and looked at me. Indeed, there's a difference between people. You should find a job at a factory near where you live. Anyway, you won't last long here. Watching them sing from the same hymn sheet, I felt no anger, only pity for their clownish behavior. I glanced at them, my eyes filled with contempt, and said, Don't get too cocky. The higher you fly, the harder you fall. April chuckled disdainfully, unfazed. I'm about to be promoted to supervisor, and John's uncle will soon become the company's vice president. How could we possibly fall? Also, John has a friend who knows Mr. Lee, and he's already asked him to help contact Mr. Lee. With this connection, closing Mr. Lee's deal won't be a problem. Even if you try to sabotage it, it won't work. I laughed and said, You won't close the deal, and you won't become a supervisor. You? What else can you do besides talk big? If your workability was as good as you're boasting, you wouldn't be at the bottom of the company. April said scornfully. John grew impatient and said, Don't waste your breath on this loser. If it weren't for my uncle's upcoming promotion to vice president, which requires me to keep a low profile and not cause trouble, I would have fired him already. He's an eyesore. I didn't bother with him anymore and went straight up in the elevator. When I got to the office, April's phone rang just as she sat down. She looked at it and her face lit up with joy. She said to me, See that? Mr. Lee is calling me. I'll definitely close the deal today. Then, April quickly answered the call, but things didn't go as she expected. I could hear the yelling from the other end of the line. I told you not to call me again. If you find someone else to bother me again, you'll regret it. The other person hung up, not giving April a chance to speak. April froze in place, at a loss for what had just happened. I chuckled and said, Is this what you call closing the deal? April snapped out of it and glared at me. I ignored her gaze and said calmly, This is just the beginning. April was both angry and confused. Just as she was about to ask something, her phone rang again. April answered the call, and another client wanted to cancel their cooperation. After hanging up, another client called, also wanting to cancel. In just a few minutes, 3 clients who were about to sign contracts with her canceled. Now, April was completely panicked. She had never experienced anything like this before. I had always been helping her behind the scenes, so she had always had smooth sailing and never faced many setbacks. April was anxious and looked at me. What the hell did you do? I shook my head. I didn't do anything. They were all clients I referred to you. You said you didn't need my help anymore, so I just informed them. Those clients were only buying products from the company because of me. It didn't matter to them who they bought from. So when I said I didn't need them to anymore, they naturally canceled the cooperation. April didn't believe I had such capabilities and shook her head. You don't have that kind of power. I know you well enough. Whatever trick you played, if I find out, I won't let you off. I didn't care about April's threats. She was too busy to bother with me and rushed to John's office. At first, only the clients who were about to cooperate backed out. But soon, even the clients who were already cooperating started to terminate their contracts. And then I realized that all of April's clients were introduced by me. In other words, she hadn't found a single client on her own since she joined the company. Such a big issue was beyond what John and April could handle. The company's top management was very concerned about this matter. April and John were frequently called in for questioning by the higher-ups, who wanted to know why this was happening. Although this incident wouldn't bankrupt the company, it greatly affected the company's performance and reputation. April had never seen anything like this and was living in fear every day. In this situation, forget about April getting promoted to supervisor. Even John was affected and questioned by the higher-ups. One morning, April came to the office late. I noticed that she wasn't as flustered as she had been in the past few days. Instead, she seemed somewhat relieved. I was puzzled. The problem hadn't been solved, so why was she acting like this? After she sat down at her desk, she looked at me and suddenly said, "You're dead meat." I was taken aback, not understanding why she would say that. But I quickly understood and figured they must have some scheme. However, I wasn't worried. In the face of absolute power, schemes are useless. Sure enough, they soon took action. Just before noon, John came to me with several managers and pointed at me, saying, "It's him." He stole the company's client data and contacted the clients privately, slandering the company and damaging its reputation. That's why so many clients have terminated their cooperation recently. John's accusation caused an uproar among the colleagues. So they were planning to frame me. However, I was calm and said, "What evidence do you have?" John said, "Evidence? Isn't it obvious? You and April were a couple before, so you had many opportunities to get April's client information. Recently, April broke up with you and chose to be with me. So you held a grudge and did these outrageous things to get revenge on us. Your performance in the company is at the bottom. You've been harboring resentment for a long time. I saw it all. But the company nurtured you for so long, and you still did such a thing. You're so ungrateful, causing the company such huge losses." April quickly chimed in, "That's right. I caught him looking at my client information several times before, but I didn't think much of it. I didn't expect him to have planned this all along." The colleagues started discussing among themselves. John and April's stories sounded plausible, and some people who didn't know the truth started to believe them. Seeing this, John and April smiled, their scheme seemingly successful. However, I remained calm. If they could make everyone believe their lies, even if they couldn't find any evidence, it would be taken as truth, and I would be seen as the company's enemy. But I wouldn't let them have their way. I scanned the crowd and finally stopped at John. "You're accusing me without evidence. If it were someone else, they might not be able to clear their name, but unfortunately for you, I can prove you're lying." My words made the smiles on John and April's faces freeze. "If you have evidence, then show it." John was still acting tough, but I could see he was losing confidence. April added, "Just admit it. Maybe you can get a lighter punishment and help the company recover its losses." At this moment, a middle-aged man spoke up. "If you can't prove your innocence, then you're dead. Causing such huge losses to the company won't let a scumbag like you off easily." The speaker was John's uncle, Frank, the marketing director and a top executive in the company. I laughed. The real scumbag is John, and you, as the director, are not only failing to uphold justice for the employees, but also abusing your power to persecute them. Nonsense. I've always been fair and just... This whole incident was caused by you, Frank retorted angrily. I sneered, accusing me without evidence. Is that what you call fair and just? All right, I'm tired of arguing with you. You want evidence? I'll show you now. Then, I turned to April and said, "Take your phone and call Mr. Lee." April was stunned and didn't immediately follow my instructions. It was only when Frank told her to make the call that she took out her phone and dialed Mr. Lee's number. I told her to put it on speakerphone. After the call connected, a roar came from the other end. "I told you not to call me." After he finished, I spoke up. "It's Ethan. The person on the other end was stunned for a moment, and then his tone changed drastically. Young master, why are you calling me? Nothing much. Someone said I secretly called you and badmouth Power Machinery, so I'm calling to clarify. Mister. Lee on the other end was furious. A small company like Power Machinery isn't worth your time, young master. How dare they accuse you? With your status, how could you do such a thing? I only agreed to talk to them because of you. Otherwise, they're nothing. I spoke a few more words and then hung up. Everyone was looking at each other, the situation clearly beyond their expectations. I had April call 2 more clients, and the result was the same. Now everyone was shocked because even a fool could see that my identity was not simple. John and April were at a loss for words. I spread my hands and looked at everyone. Do you think I need to steal client data? I turned to April again. I told you before, I can give you clients, and I can make you lose them. April was too scared to speak, and it took her a while to say, Who exactly are you? Someone you'll definitely regret losing, I said with a smile. At this point, John tried to remain calm, putting on an act. Even if you know them, they're already the company's clients. You shouldn't have sabotaged it. Frank agreed. Yes, you're a member of the company, and your actions should be in the company's interest. I looked at them and smiled. With people like you around, it's hard to protect the company's interests. Just then, the owner of Power Machinery suddenly arrived. Frank and the others greeted the owner, but he ignored them and walked straight to me, saying respectfully, Young master. I nodded slightly, and he continued, Young master, I didn't know you were working at my company. I'm truly sorry for not recognizing you and neglecting you. I said calmly, That's not a big deal. However, there are some bad apples in your company. The owner of Power Machinery was furious. Who is it? I'll deal with them immediately. I briefly explained the situation to him. He looked at Frank, John, and the others angrily and shouted, You can all get lost now. John and April were instantly panicked. Frank was a bit calmer and said, Boss, I've been with you for so many years. Even if I haven't made great contributions, I've worked hard. Isn't it too much to ask me to leave now? Too much. The owner of Power Machinery sneered and continued, Do you think I don't know about the kickbacks you've been taking as a director? I could turn a blind eye before, but now that you've done something like this, I can only ask you to leave. Your nephew isn't any better, always using your connections to flirt with female colleagues in the company. I've received so many complaints about him. Frank's face turned red, and he said angrily, Is it really that big of a deal? The owner of Power Machinery mocked. Is it a big deal? Good thing I came quickly, or you would have ruined the company. Do you know who this is? This is Young Master from the wealthiest family. You almost caused a huge disaster. Get out now, and don't even think about working in this city again. Frank, John, and April turned pale. John's legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. April muttered, The wealthiest family. Young Master. April suddenly knelt before me and begged, Ethan, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I didn't mean it. John was the one who instigated me. I was just confused for a moment. Please forgive me just this once. I looked at her coldly and said, I told you. You would regret this. April tried to grab my leg and beg, but I didn't want to deal with her anymore. The owner soon had someone drag her away. And that was the end of the farce. I left the company and returned to work for my family's business. This incident taught me that hiding my identity doesn't necessarily lead to true love. So, I decided not to hide my identity when looking for a girlfriend in the future. I should find someone who is my equal. After that, April tried everything to find me, hoping to get my forgiveness and get back together with me. But I had already seen her true colors, and there was no way I could ever see her the same way again.